HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. Since 2009, Heritage Radio Network podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. We've been making cheese in Wisconsin since before we were even a state, which may be one reason why we win so many awards for it. It's what happens when a whole state dreams in cheese. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Welcome to The Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. This is our final show of 2023, the Holiday Wine and Champagne Show. We'll talk to 3 of the best people in the business. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for The Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. As the year winds down and we celebrate the holiday season, we want to make sure you are drinking and gifting the right wines and champagnes. We asked 3 of our expert friends to guide us through the myriad of wine and bubbly choices out there. We'll be talking to Jonelle Fallner, Katja Scharnagel, and Aldo Sohm. So get your pen and paper out for some great recommendations, and I'd like to thank them for taking a few minutes out of their busy schedule to help us. I'm with Jonelle Fallner, Beverage Director at Naun Hospitality. We are at Naru in Rockefeller Center. Jonelle is an award-winning sommelier and oversees the beverage programs at Adamix, Naru, Attaboy. Adamix is a Michelin 2-star restaurant, number 8 on the list of the world's 50 best restaurants, and 3 stars from the New York Times, along with Naru's New York Times 3-star review. As I mentioned, Jonelle is one of the nicest people I know in the business, and he is certainly one of the smartest. All right, Jonelle, I have you here. I made you do this, so you must respond to my questions. So I need your help, and I need you to help my listeners select their holiday wines and champagnes for the new year. I think you're qualified for this because you've been brilliantly pairing wine and champagne with multiple courses of diverse foods with your Adamix tasting menus, so this should be easy. And as we mentioned more than once, Adamix is a multi-course restaurant, and on a given night, you're serving how many courses?
It's about 11 different bites.
Okay. And on a lower to higher range of how many wines somebody could drink through that coursing, how many wines? Is it 3, 4, 5 wines?
We usually serve for our pairings about 7 to 8 different wines.
7 or 8. Okay, so this is a piece of cake for you. All right, so these questions should come pretty easily to you. I think you're pretty well prepared to answer these. You've probably had some thoughts about these, all right? So I'm going to throw some holidays at you. Talk to me about wines to pair with these foods, okay? Because we know food is a big part of the holidays, and we're wine guys, so we want to make sure people drink wine and drink the right wine. So let's start with Hanukkah. We're actually in the middle of Hanukkah. Give me your best pairings for latkes, and then what do you think for brisket?
That's a great question. I think for latkes, especially with that fried flavor, I think maybe a crisp Blanc de Blanc from Jacques Lassagne, I think would be great. It's lean, savory, cut, and I think should just work well with those flavors quite easily. And for brisket, all of a sudden I'm thinking of something with a little bit more heft and power. So maybe Paul Barra, Special Club Rosé from a particular vintage, let's say 2012, should be an amazing.
Is it available?
Wine. I sure hope so.
Okay.
The 2015 should be. I think
Okay.
something a little bit more current.
You won't go wrong if you find the 15 or the 12 is out there.
You won't go wrong with Paul Barra, period. So I
Okay.
think
There you
it's
go.
a good thing. But with the flavors of the brisket, I'd drink that for sure.
All right, so for the latkes, you said a Blanc de Blanc, which is, tell people what that is, a Blanc de Blanc.
Yeah, it's generally a Chardonnay-based wine. So it's clean, it's crisp. It definitely has a certain precision to it that I love.
All right, let's move to Christmas. A couple of things I want to focus on. Feast of the Seven Fishes, the night before Christmas Eve. And then the next day, people are putting out a lot of spiral hams, turkeys, pies. So what are you thinking about those things?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think it must be a Magnum. It has to be a larger
Okay.
format bottle. Whenever I think of the holidays, it's usually with a bigger group of people. So I think in particular for the Feast of the Seven Fishes, I want to say a Magnum of Riesling. It's always fun, festive, and perhaps something from Cornelius Donhoff coming from Germany.
Great maker.
Great winemaker, great wines, and I think it's an amazing thing to have. Or perhaps a Magnum from Brooklyn Wolf from the Pfalz would also be amazing. Still Riesling, dry, but with a lot of complexity to go along with those different flavors.
Question on the Riesling. You know, we know sommeliers love Riesling more than any other category of people. We know there's a lot of Riesling lovers out there, but there's that many more people that don't know Riesling or think it's a sweet wine.
That's right.
The Rieslings you're talking about are specifically categorized as what, and what's their profile?
Yeah, I'd say the ones I'm talking about are definitely Trocken or dry. It's the
Trocken.
German term for it.
Okay.
So if you ever see Trocken on a label, it'll mean that it's dry. Not to say that off-dry styles are should be overlooked, but if you're looking for something that's crowd pleasing and for everybody, a Trocken or a dry style in general would be the wine that kind of people will gravitate towards. And Germany generally has a range of styles from the bone dry to the sweetest of the sweet. So just ask your friendly neighborhood salesperson.
We always recommend that. Find a good shop and consult and confide with them. So Feast of the Seven Fishes, which is a variety of fishes, the Magnum of a Trocken Riesling is a good hit. All right, move the next day to some meats. You have pork, and then maybe you have some turkey, maybe a roast. What goes? Maybe they're all three on the table. What's a wine or two that works with that?
Yeah, I'd say something that's calling out to me is a wine from the Etata region of Chile right now. It's a Vinos Masintin, and they make this amazing Sanso out of other varieties. I think this grape is fun, unique, has an elegance to it, but also a certain power to it that I think works well with all of those meatier flavors.
So I may not have mentioned this to you before, but this is the third show where Etata reds have come up. Pais and Cinzalt. Isabel Legeron is promoting it heavily for raw wine and the natural winemakers. Josh Green from Wine and Spirits on our year-end show basically sings the praises. I think it's 2 years in a row already. And I know how diverse your tastes are and your needs, for all the restaurants. For you to bring it up, there must be something going on there. So that's a nice thing. What do you do about pies? I mean, we have friends, you're done with the meal, they bring out like 11 pies. I know they're all different and there's probably a wine for each one, but what would you serve with pie?
Yeah, I think for that particular variety of flavors, I would maybe say go back to Champagne, and I would go with Champagne Margaux. They make this amazing demi-sec champagne.
Explain what demi-sec is.
Yes, essentially, this is a style of champagne that used to be a little bit more in vogue. It's slightly off dry. It still has that fruit, that acidity, but a bit of a roundness to it that I think makes it such a versatile wine to have in the glass. especially with pie at that. You get that refreshing fizz and that acidity, but with a bit more of that roundness to pair with the flavors.
If you guys don't follow those 3 recommendations, you're going to have a crappy night. I mean, everything sounds so good, doesn't it? All right, let's finish with one more holiday, Kwanzaa. Traditionally known for fried fish, fried whiting, other fish, fried okra, some other fried vegetables. That's one category I want you to consider. Creole and gumbo dishes, spicy stews, and maybe similar to pies, but let's see where you go. There's a lot of yams and a lot of different presentations. Marshmallows, mashed, just baked pies, all right? So give me your Kwanzaa recommendations.
Yeah, I'd say for the fried kind of fish portion of that, I would maybe go Greek. You said fried fish, and I automatically went to Greek wine. So I'd say perhaps an Assyrtiko coming from Santorini is an easy one. So Hatzidakis would be a great producer to come out of that, and just these crisp, lean flavors I think work so well with seafood in general. And I guess for something perhaps a little bit more decadent, like the sweet pies, sweet potatoes, like you mentioned. I think with that, something that's a little bit richer. For some reason, I think perhaps a red coming from Sonoma, I think could be a fun dry red wine. Perhaps something from Occidental, which is an amazing family, the Kistler family, that's kind of done that for more than a few years.
So
at
you're
this point.
thinking Pinots?
I'm thinking Pinot Noir.
So Kistler and Occidental? Or the Kistler's Occidental?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. The Occidental label, I think,
Wonderful
should be
stuff.
amazing.
Yeah.
Great Pinot, great body, balance. And I think, the West Coast wines are wines from the U.S. in general just have such a great profile to them. And speaking of that, especially if we're in New York, heading upstate, in terms of a recommendation, Herman J. Weimer, again with their Riesling, something that's a little bit rounder and still acid driven. And to throw something off the eastern part of New York, Channing Daughters, I think produces some amazing, unique wines, even a skin contact
A
wine.
variety. I mean, like dozens plus.
Exactly.
Where everyone's making Merlot and Chardonnay and Cab Franc. This guy's like, can't keep track with him.
Exactly.
Keep up with him. All right, so those are good ones. So there's your 3 holidays, some great recommendations. All right, let's stay in this vein for a minute. You are a proud Filipino. You flaunt it proudly. We just talked off air. You're going back to an old buddy's wedding, which should be fun for you. So spend a few minutes. Tell me a traditional holiday meal on the Filipino table. We just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff here. And what wines and champagnes would go well with that? And I have no idea what the answer is. It could be more traditional than what we've been talking about, so go.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. A Filipino feast for the holidays. The centerpiece will almost always likely be lechon, which is a whole roasted suckling pig that's been roasting for hours. And thankfully, you can also get that here in the United States, especially if you're in New York, New Jersey. But that's always at the centerpiece of any celebration. And then you have everything else that's surrounding it, whether it's pancit, which are thin glass noodles. You have adobo. You have dinuguan, which is a pork blood stew. You have kare-kare, which is an oxtail braised with a peanut butter sauce and bok choy. All of these things are staples that you will find in any Filipino feast. Honestly, it doesn't even have to be the holidays. It just has to be a celebration. But that's what you'll find
And they're
for
bringing
Christmas
the
and New
pig
Year.
out.
You bring in the pig, and everybody is there carving it up. So I think
So center table is the
lechon.
lechon. What's the dream wine for a lechon?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I think first and foremost, I think champagne should be on the table with that one, especially because it's going to be a rich, sort of fatty meal for sure. So something that's lean and crisp, but with a little bit of body would be great. So I would recommend, as a staple for everybody, perhaps Bollinger Special Cuvée, which is an amazing blend that has, I think, a great amount of reserve wine. So you get that acidity and that freshness, but also a bit of richness, exactly, on the palate, which is exactly what you'll want with a decadent bite, especially like the lechon skin. It's like chef's kiss.
Yeah. Pick another dish prominent on the table, and let's talk about a wine with that.
Absolutely. I would say for, let's say, a dish like a dish like kare kare, which is that braised oxtail that I
Right.
mentioned in a peanut butter stew, I've always loved it with Chardonnay. So not to just
Why does that work?
I think it's
So wait,
that
you have the meat, you have kind of the braised down meat, and then is the peanut prominent in there?
it's a very thick peanut butter sauce that it's almost in. So it's almost
Okay.
it's almost you
so
scoop
tell
the-
me why Chardonnay?
Yeah, I think Chardonnay or conversely Aligoté from Burgundy would be great because it adds a little bit of that almost buttery flavor.
Mm.
And I think adding that flavor with this one, especially with the fermented shrimp that you have to mix in with it, is an amazing combination of flavors. And it's also a bit more of a neutral background to the dish itself, which is packed
So
with flavor.
more of a buttery chard
Yeah, I
than
would
a
say
racy steel tank. You want a little of that buttery.
you want a little bit of that
Yep,
kind
I
of
get
richer
it.
flavor.
I totally get it.
If you're having Filipino food, you go rich with rich. Not a bad thing.
Jesus, it sounds like we could probably do a whole show on the Filipino meal.
We should.
I mean, if we had to talk about the 3 or 4 influences in Filipino food, it would be Asian,
Definitely.
Latin.
Yeah, there's definitely a big Spanish influence in the food that you have there, and different parts of Asia as well, whether it's Chinese, Malay
Right.
cuisine. It's all infused in there, and of course, over the course of the last few centuries, it's kind of developed and kind of changed from there on out. So amazing, kind of mixing pot of different
Yeah, sounds great.
different influences.
I follow the industry and I follow it around the country, and you probably know this as well as I do, but more higher end Filipino restaurants are opening up. I think the Damaca Sema guys are open, when they're
Yeah.
doing it. I think there's one in Chicago. So it's exciting because just in the small descriptions of the foods we talked about, how could you not love that?
Yeah.
All right, let's move along. Stay with Champagne for a second. Anything in Champagne exciting you now? Is it a region? Is it a maker? Is it a varietal? Like, we mentioned Blanc de Blanc a few times, are you drinking just Meuniers or Pinot Noirs? What's anything come to mind, with Champagne that's been on your radar?
Absolutely. I think with Champagne, it's always about discovery. It's obviously a very historied region, but I think at the same time, there are always new things that are popping up from whether it's a larger Champagne house or a smaller family that's producing it. And the variety of styles are kind of ever increasingly changing. So the grapes are generally the same, but with the changes in climate and also what people are making, I think it's been fun to kind of explore these slightly newer cuvées.
Is there a maker that kind of represents what you're saying?
Yeah, I think maker-wise, I think perhaps something that I've been enjoying lately in the glass is Champagne Bergère. So
Spell for me.
it's a Bergere.
Bergère.
And I think the champagnes are of excellent value, first and foremost, and they have just very different personalities in the glass. We're pouring right now a Solera, not a super long Solera, but a Solera of Chardonnay that he's making. And I think it's absolutely delicious wine in the glass, easy to pair with food. And I think it's something that is not to be missed. It's a name that may be new to some people, but I think that's the beautiful part about champagne and wine in general.
Yeah, I mean, it continues to surprise with different regions and makers and all of that. What would be your splurge champagne?
Ooh, that's such a great question. For a splurge champagne,
Salos.
Salos is always a great time.
Go ahead.
Salos is a great time, but I would probably, I would throw in the hat.
This is splurge.
This is splurge. In fact, it might be
over splurge.
an over splurge, but there's a new cuvée from Champagne Bollinger called Coteau des Enfants, and it's a small plot. Just a powerful, rich, smoky champagne that is haunting. I've only tasted it
Like
once.
smokier than most champagnes.
Yeah, it has this density to it without being big or rich that I think is enchanting. So I think that's a hyper rare one to find.
Ballpark, not looking for total accuracy, but like, what's a bottle of that cost?
Yeah, I'd say retail, it would probably be in the realm of, I want to say, 1250 to 1500.
Oh, so that's a real splurge.
It's a splurge.
I was going to cringe a little if you said $280.
Yeah.
No, that's a splurge.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm sure people will look out for it. All right. Sparkling wine, bubbly champagne. Let's move to sparklers around the world outside of champagne. If you don't like champagne, you can't afford it, you want to mix some sparklers with champagne, tell me some regions, makers that have the quality, have good value. What
Absolutely.
are you thinking of?
First thing to mind is Brundelmeyer, coming from the Kamptal in Austria. Hands down, a pioneer in the traditional method sparkling wines coming out of Austria. I think those wines are simply amazing. So their Blanc de Blanc sect is just linear and will challenge
SEKT.
SEKT.
Is that dry in German or something? What does sect mean?
Sect essentially is their term for their sparkling wines.
Sparkling wine, okay.
Absolutely. And they are dry, and they kind of use the same terminology that you would find in champagne. So
Right.
they'll say brut as well, or a brut reserve.
Is it method champenois, or they do it a little differently?
They do it the same with the
do.
second fermentation
Okay.
in the bottle. So I think they do a great job with that. I think for other sparkling wines around the world of cava, I think is amazing as well. There's a lot of cool things that are popping up in Spain. Juve Camp, of course, is a very storied name, and I think this is a more affordable option. But just the regular Gran Reserva, the 2017, I think, is an easy wine to have on the table, and such a great great accompaniment to any food. And yeah, I think those are a couple of options that I would immediately look out
the quality is there, and
Quality's
they're not
there.
crazy like some champagnes. All right, last question. I'm going to let you go. I lied to you. I kept you here a little longer than I said. This is a silly question, but I'm just curious. If you had to drink one wine, it's one of those desert island things, but not desert island. Listen, holidays are coming. You get to pick one wine. That's what you're drinking through the holidays. What's it going to be?
It would probably be Egon Muller, Schwarzhofburger, Riesling of any sweetness level. But if I had to choose, I would choose a Spätlese with a little bit of age. I'm just enamored by the wines themselves. Obviously, the grape variety. I think this may be the 10th Riesling I've mentioned on this brief podcast.
There's no truth to sommeliers love Riesling, right?
Yeah, it's a lie. But I do love the wine.
That's a great maker, and that's a great wine. And certainly, if you were stuck with it in your hand, you wouldn't be unhappy.
Yeah.
All right, listen, terrific job. Great diversity of styles, wines, matching. I didn't think any less. You brought it all to the table. So I want to thank Jonel for taking time out of a busy schedule. We're in ground zero. We're underneath the Christmas tree, almost literally, if I tell you that, in Rockefeller Center. So thanks for helping us for our year-end champagne and holiday show, and happy and healthy holidays to you.
Thanks, Sam. Happy holidays.
Thank you. I'm sitting with Katja Scharnagel, the beverage director at Coleman Restaurant in New York City. Coleman is a New York Times 3-star restaurant by chef Marcus Glocker. Before coming to Coleman, Katja was the chef sommelier with Aldo Sohm at New York Times 4-star restaurant Le Bernardine for many years. Now she's here. Thank you for doing this, and happy holidays. All right, so I've known Katja for a while, and I handpicked her to help me do this holiday show. So, Katja, with you, I want to focus on champagne. You're a big supporter. You have a bunch of them on your list. We know how good it is. And it's a celebratory beverage, and the holidays are upon us, but it goes beyond that. All right, so the first thing is people think of champagne as a celebratory beverage. Okay for this time of the year, but why should we should drink champagne year round. Tell
Yes,
me
we
why.
should.
Why? I
Definitely, we
mean,
should.
what is it about champagne that makes it right to drink anytime?
It makes you feel special, you know. You come home after a long day, you know, and then you're like, you know, you want to drink something, and why don't open bubbles, you know, if you want something great, and it's great with fried chicken or French fries, you know. It doesn't have to be like an
Fancy
occasion,
food.
you know. No, fried chicken, it's not fancy.
So that's a good point because people think of it as celebratory, but if you pop a bottle, it
Yeah.
makes it special.
Totally.
All right, let's talk about foods for a second.
Yeah.
Tell me why it goes so well with fried foods.
The freshness and acidity. So champagne usually have acidity more than other wines, and so it really cuts through the fattiness of the for the dishes. But also champagne is super versatile. You know, it depends on what you do. Is it a Blanc de Blanc or is it a vintage champagne or something with age? You know,
Right.
You can go all the way through a menu. You know, it's something. If you and your partner don't agree on something to drink, open a bottle of champagne because you're both gonna be happy, and it's super versatile with food.
I was just going to say, would you say of all wines, still or sparkling, it's among, if not the most versatile
It is
wine?
absolutely, absolutely.
Do you feel it's still underappreciated? Like I know Psalms love it, and you see it on lists in every type of cuisine, and you're seeing more in stores. But is it there yet?
I don't think so. It's still, as you said, you know, people think you only buy champagne when it's, you know, for celebration, for New Year's or anything. But I think you still find some good values out there. And again, it's something, you know, I'm in the mood for red, I'm in the mood for white or anything. I think that's something both partners can agree on it.
So when I go out to dinner with friends,
Yeah.
everybody knows that I bring the wine because I have a cellar and I don't want to drink everyone's sucky wine, so I'll bring mine. So I used to bring a white and a red, and those varied. Now I bring champagne and a red because the champagne, a lot of courses start with seafood, you know, so that stuff goes.
Sushi, crudos, etc. You know.
All right, I want to tap into your knowledge and expertise. People may know this, know a little about it, or know nothing about it, but there's basically 3 blending grapes in Champagne: Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier.
Yeah.
Take a couple of minutes to discuss each varietal and what it adds to the Champagne. Like a Blanc de Blanc is all Chardonnay, you know, what's going on with that? And what are some of the trends you're seeing? So let's start. Talk to me about the varietals.
So for the basic, so Chardonnay, I think it brings freshness to it, you know, the complexity. It's almost like, you know, like the apples, you see the green apples, sometimes you smell on it, the toastiness. Pinot Meunier, I think that brings the acidity to it, the freshness to it. And then Pinot Noir, the structure, the texture, and almost sometimes the depth to it, if you so mind.
So a all Chardonnay wine is called a.
It's a Blanc de Blanc champagne.
Now are we seeing more like only Pinot Meunier wines now? Than
Yes, definitely
does that
more
have a
like,
name?
you know,
like Blanc
Yeah,
de
yeah.
Blanc, or
the Blanc de Noir, yes, Blanc de Noir,
and
yes.
the Blanc Noir works with all Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier, yes.
Okay, what in from your expertise, most of the champagnes out there are blends.
Most of them are blends, yes. I mean,
And-
there's Blanc de Blanc, the Chardonnay-driven Chardonnays. Champagnes are definitely more in the forefront now. I feel like, you know, especially when you type into grower champagnes, you know, if
Right.
you go into the houses, that's more the blend as it goes back in history
Right.
of having, like, you know,
Are people blending Meunier and Pinot Noir with no Chardonnay, or that's a tough blend?
that's a tough blend.
You don't
yes,
see
yeah,
much
yeah,
of
it's
that,
just like,
right?
yeah.
You'll see
So
Meunier
Meunier,
only.
yeah.
You may see a Pinot Noir only, but you're
Or the
not,
Chardonnay
or
only,
with
yeah, yeah,
Chardonnay
yeah.
and all of that. What's your preference? I'm curious.
Depends on which mood and, like, you know, what again, like, you know,
It's
for the
always
thing,
an
you
unfair
know?
question because of the mood. Am I eating food? What
I
is
know,
the food?
What is the thing to it, you know?
But if you
You know,
had to pick
uh,
one,
I think I go more with the Chardonnay, yes.
You would?
Yeah, Blanc
Okay.
de Blanc, yeah.
all right.
I think more Blanc de Blanc.
All right, so we know some people like sweeter champagnes,
Yeah,
typical.
yeah.
Some people like drier champagnes. Tell my listeners what dosage is and what that has to do with sweetness.
Yeah, yeah.
And then let's talk about how we label bottles.
Dosage, typing into Aldo here, he always compared it to makeup, So it's like dosage, if you have a beautiful woman, makeup can enhance a beautiful woman. Too much makeup, looks a little bit too much.
good-
And I think
good
that's
way to
what
put it.
dosage, So it's the adding touches of sugar to give the extra taste. It's really simple here to the champagne, And I think there's a trend of like going super, super dry, extra brut and brut, which might be for some people might be too dry, too astringent, almost
Is
like
that
too like
Very little or zero
Yeah,
dosage.
it can be fantastic, but sometimes, if it's too astringent, too dry, it takes away from the pleasure of drinking it. You
Right.
want a little bit of roundness, you want a little bit of touch of sugar
Right.
to it. Just, as I said, like, the makeup.
One word you didn't say was sweeter. Like Aldo's point in your
Yeah.
description is it enhances. It's not, you didn't describe it as, well, it makes it a little sweeter.
No.
That may be
Still
palatable.
super
It
dry.
makes it more
Yeah,
nuanced
yeah.
or gives it layers or
Yeah.
characters.
But even if you go back, most champagne houses, they were sweeter on the quotation mark years back. Now the trend is definitely going drier and drier and drier,
Right.
So even if you compare champagnes from 10 years ago, you would open them now and you drink them and you feel they're like slightly sweeter than they would be today because champagne houses dial back because of the market.
So if you look at champagne labels, how do I know if a champagne is dry, very dry, sweet? How do I know about dosage?
So it's the non-dosage, extra Brut, Brut Nature, so that's really super, super dry. Brut is supposedly still dry. And then everything above, then that's kind of like the level of there might be residual sugar in there.
So go through it again. What's the driest? No dosage?
No dosage, extra Brut, Brut Nature are the super, super dries. And
So
then you have
extra
Brut.
brut, and then after that is
Yeah.
brut nature.
It's similar.
Similar?
It's the same thing,
And then
as
Brut?
people put it on there.
And then Brut?
Yes. And then everything above is then
And then do they call
Sweeter.
champagne sweet like sec or what?
demi-sec, yes.
Demi-sec.
And sec is
All
on
right.
there,
So
yes.
if you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for champagne and you have a preference, don't grab a brut nature if you want, a wine with a little more
Right.
dosage. And is the dosage on the bottle somewhere?
Some of them have it on the back label.
Some
Some
don't.
of them are not.
Okay. So you can look for that. Give me a couple of picks. My listeners need to bring gifts. They need to bring wines to dinner. Give me a couple of picks to drink, and think of value and quality. All right. I'm talking however cheap you can get to however not
Oy, oy, oy.
expensive you can get. But I'm not throwing numbers at you.
No.
And obviously this would come back to producers that are favorites to you, that are tried and tested on the menus, you've done by the glass. Just throw a few names out for us to, look for that are reliable.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think two categories. One of the houses. I think they're always reliable. It's one of the things. Krug Champagne, my favorite. You can buy all over the world. You're gonna open a bottle. It's good, and it's gonna make a splash when you bring it. Other houses, Le Röder, for example. It's one of the things you can bring to a party. It's gonna be fantastic and good. Billy Casamo. And then for the smaller houses, I like Pierre Peters, which I think is very well known
and
right
that
now.
gets you in the value range.
Yes.
Louis Roeder has Cristal and
but also the entry level, the Brut Premier, I think they're not doing it. The Brut
It's now
Premier
called
anymore.
Collection.
Yeah, the collection
is a reasonably
fantastic.
right.
Yes, and it's
and those
great,
are
and,
biodynamic
yes.
vineyards, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Krug is definitely name consistency, a little more expensive. And then the Pierre Peters, he
Pierre
makes
Peters, yeah.
a few different
Good
crus,
difference.
right?
But the Cuvée de Reserve, it's fantastic entry level to Champagne, And then some of the smaller discoveries, Champagne Ullens, which he came into the restaurant actually.
Spell it.
Ullens.
Wow, I
Tiny.
never heard of it.
He was a Belgian architect who loves Champagne. And he started to do work in the Champagne region, met Alexandre Chatron-Taillet, and then sort of started to study
with him?
Champagne. And he's
Wow.
started Champagne in 2019. So that's a tiny producer and actually good value and really not expensive.
That's why I ask you to do this, because you come up with a name like that nobody probably heard of, and the quality and the value is all there. All right. I can't afford champagne or I want to do more than champagne. Talk to me about sparkling wines. Talk to me about regions, cava, sec, whatever. Talk to me about makers. What comes to mind? And there's a quality play there too.
I mean, I have to talk about an Austrian sect, obviously.
hope you
Windelmeyer, Schloss Gobelsburg. Those are fantastic sects coming out. Pet nuts, that's something super refreshing. Yes,
Tell everyone what a
urban-
pet nat is. Champagne is fermented twice.
The pet nut is like, either you add CO2 to it and the base wine. But it's something easygoing, fantastic. Usually have like crown cork on there.
Yes.
Easy to open. There's definitely some more unfiltered, unfined
Pet
nuts out there.
Yeah.
It depends on
They
what
could
you
be
are.
funky.
Yeah.
But I think pet nat is a
yeah.
category, and everyone makes it.
Yes.
The U.S., France,
Everybody
Italy,
does.
Australia. I think that's a
Yeah.
fun suggestion.
Crémence from the Loire Valley. Chenin Blanc based.
Very reasonable.
Lambert, that's a fantastic producer. Really reasonable, fantastic, and almost tastes like champagne.
Do you like Lambrusco?
Oh yes, Lambruscos are great, especially with pizza. Oh my god, fantastic.
I know. I remember the dark red fizzly ones. They're way more evolved,
Oh,
right?
definitely, yeah.
I mean, there's terrific stuff
Really
out there.
cool stuff out there.
All right, I'm asking everyone this. What's your splurge champagne? If you could have a bottle or drink whatever you want, what would you call for?
I would still go back to Krug. Sorry.
You would?
Yes.
All right, so that's kind of a tribute to.
The Grand Cuvée. It's fantastic.
I think that's perfect. All right. I flew home with you. I'm walking around Austria with you. I go to your house and I'm about to sit down for your Austrian holiday meal. So I want to know what's out on the table, and then I want you to talk to me about wines you pair with that.
Okay.
Typical could be what your family does, what's traditional, a combination. What am I looking at?
Appetizer, smoked salmon, then like small deviled eggs, things like this, and then Christmas goose,
So
with dumplings.
goose more than
and-
turkey or
Yes.
ham?
Yeah.
All right, so nice smoked salmon, anything on it, creme fraiche or just lemon?
Just capers and.
What am I
I
drinking with that?
Let's stick in Austria. Let's do it at the Schloss Gobelsburg sect.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, now, is a goose even more fatty than a
It is.
duck?
It is.
Okay, so it's very rich. You got a terrific skin. You got a dark meat, oily. What's?
And then red cabbage, and the dumplings, and the lingonberries.
All right, so wait, let's do the goose first.
Blaufränkisch all the way.
No questions.
No questions about
Okay.
it. Blaufränkisch brings spice to it, has nice acidity, and I would go for Georg Briller, the Blaufränkisch, Johannes Höhe, which is his entry level, but then you also can splurge up to single vineyards. He just brought into US the Marienthal 2013 with a little bit of age to it, which is a little bit more splurge, but it's the holidays and it's fantastic.
I had Josh Green on my show last week. It was my year-end show. And I asked him his favorite food and wine pairing. His friend made a duck at Thanksgiving and paired it with Blaufränkisch. So that's a
Blaufränkisch it
wine
is.
everyone should be looking
Yes.
for. All right, does anything pair with cabbage?
The red cabbage. I mean, the Blaufränkisch works too. It's
It
like
does.
usually you have a lot of like onions in there. You saute the red cabbage. You add a lot of red wine in there. And then you have
So
spices
besides
for their,
Blaufränkisch, what else would go with it?
if we're sick in Austria, St. Laurent from the Taman region, and then Austria makes some fantastic blends as well. But let's stick
So
with
you
Blaufränkisch.
mentioned lingonberry. What
Yeah.
goes on with that? They make a lingonberry sauce for the goose?
There
Or is it a
like,
separate?
It's like lingonberry jam,
Jam.
So you put on the side, you eat with the goose,
Okay. Anything go with that? Sweeter wine or no?
No, that's just It's just like a little like a small component on it, like a garnish.
Now, what? I think I've probably eaten them here. What's some classic Austrian desserts that you would see at your family get together?
For the holidays, definitely all the cookies in the world. So it's called one is Vanillekipferl, which is basically hazelnuts, butter, and butter and sugar.
Nuts and butter, rich.
And then, yes. And so the little cookies that look like a half moon, and when they come out, you dust them in powdered sugar. And that's pretty much for the holidays. That's one of the most classic ones you can get there. And it's just, you keep them for like 2 weeks, then they just get really kind of like
What's a good
super
sip
soft.
with a bite of that?
Kracher.
What is that?
Kracher Bärnauslese. Alles Kracher.
Oh,
Yeah, late harvest dessert
Cracker
wine.
Somme.
Kracher
Aldo
Somme.
makes a wine with them too. Is that a sweet wine?
No, that's the regular Gruner Veltliner, but Gerhard makes a sweet wine.
Yeah,
yes.
but that's what I'm talking. So Gerhard's sweet wine with.
With the vanilla Kipferl, yes.
All right, I'm not going to take up much of your time, much more of your time. For the holidays, like everyone, you're going to be working a lot.
Oh yes, I'm going to be
No rest
here.
for the weary.
I'm going to be here at Koloman, yes.
Listen, I'm sitting with Katja and we're at Koloman, and if you haven't made your holiday plans, I don't even know if there's anything available. This is a restaurant going forward, should be on your radar. It's absolutely terrific. All right, so I want to thank my friend Katja Scharnagel for taking time to help us with our year-end wine and champagne special. We beat a few good recommendations out of you, so I appreciate that. And I wish you the happiest and healthy of holidays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
I'm here with Aldo Sohm, the longtime award-winning head wine guy at Le Bernardin and proprietor of Aldo Sohm Wine Bar in New York City. Aldo has been with Eric Ripert at the 3 Michelin-starred and New York Times 4-star restaurant Le Bernardin for about 17 years. He opened his eponymous wine bar almost 10 years ago, and he is also the author of Wine Simple. And if you go to the Grape Nation archives, there's an episode of me and Aldo talking about the book Wine Simple. So that's fun. To me, Aldo Sohm is the dean of New York sommeliers, the dean of all sommeliers. When I think of this business and I think of wine and I think the people, that do this, I think of Aldo at the top of the list. And I'm not saying that to flatter you. You've earned it. So that's also why you're here for the second year in a row. All right, so let's jump right into it. This is our holiday show, and I want to tap into your expertise on a bunch of things. So I'm curious, because I'm such a restaurant guy in New York and all that. Do you see a change in people's drinking habits at Le Bernardin and here at the wine bar during the holiday season? Are they drinking differently? Are they drinking more of something that they don't? I mean, is the obvious answer champagne or?
Well, first, a big warm hello from Midtown Manhattan.
Here we add Aldo
to all
Sohm
the
Wine Bar.
listeners. Happy holidays to you as well, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the really kind words. Wine is my passion, and this passion never left me, and I feel blessed with it. And I'm also very, very fortunate to work, with such a great partner, Eric Ripert, and also Maggie Lecours, which, again, I learn daily from them. I gotta be honest. Plus, I'm part of an absolutely fantastic team, and I managed also to, create also a fantastic team on both sides. Whether it's Le Bernardin or whether it's Aldo Sohm Wine Bar. And it's quite refreshing to work with young talents. because I've been there once, many weeks ago myself, and it's wonderful to watch. To answer your question, is Yeah.
Before you answer, you said the word team 2 or 3 times. And a lot of people, it's I, me, I. I know with you, it's about team. And you have worked, or people have worked for you, in the years that I said you've been here, 10, 15, 17 years. These people have moved on in the industry to, other positions, higher positions. And you're always, bringing new people in. And that's your mentality. Team.
First of all, no one works for me. I work with them.
That's why I said
and
team.
They work with me.
I was wrong.
And no, but it's a very important difference in terms of mindset. And, often you see this now. I did this myself many, many years ago until I realized what I'm doing makes no sense. It's a little bit like, if you run the wine program, you're the guy who is constantly completely slammed. And it's a little bit like you watch, the Con Edison workers on the corner. Right? There's 2 guys working and 5 people are watching them, and they're not looking really happy about it. So
that's so New York.
And I learned this, right? When you approach, life with an open eyes and an open spirit, you have to involve your team and let them feel the responsibility and let them feel the weight and also the consequence if you tank something, right? Obviously, I'm there just to prevent that happening. And also as a mentor, look, I learned this one fantastic quote from Ted Lasso. As a mentor, you would hope a great sommelier would move on. Of course, it's painful.
Sure.
Right? Do you think it was not painful when Katja left? You're kidding me? These were big shoes to fill. Huh?
It's sort of the highest compliment and the sign that you are successful.
Yeah. But,
and her specifically moved on to an incredible opportunity.
Or having a Sarah move on, right?
Right.
Sarah
who
Thomas.
didn't even stay in the business, kind of explored another area and succeeded at it.
I got her into this. She asked me, and I set the stage just for her as a part-time.
That's right.
But I think it's important, to have people around you who are happy, not miserable.
Well,
because they're blocked.
People neglect that. They worry about the customer and not their employees. When your employees are happy, your customers will be happy.
You can do both.
That's right. You should do both.
Yeah.
All right. Get back to my question.
Okay.
I'm talking holidays. Are people's, people probably are coming here now, between now and the end of the year, that maybe didn't come here because they want to celebrate. So you get a bump in that besides the regulars. What are they drinking? Is it different?
Look, the beauty, what I love about this industry, no table is alike. You have some tables who eat, 3 times at Le Bernardin per week. You have some people who save an entire year to afford a meal at Le Bernardin. And I love that. Some people, fly thousands of miles to come to us and to have a dinner and an experience. Every table is different. I think it's more about the human. Where these people are in their mindset, what are they looking for, and what are they looking to experience? And I think that's the key component, just taking time and looking into the human itself. We see this all the time, right? You have a business dinner, right? They entertain, and then the next day the client comes back with his wife. It's a total different experience.
Right.
I got to cater to.
Right, and he came back because of the night
and it's
before.
Just a very simple thing.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating, right? Because you get to learn and you get to see so many different sides of human beings and personalities. Now, with that being said, of course, during the holiday season, people celebrate, people party. Of course, they drink more champagne. They drink probably more Burgundies. They spend probably a little bit more. So
champagne is obvious. Did you say Burgundy?
Yeah.
Just because that's a splurge thing.
Yeah,
hey,
for us, but it's also Le Bernardin. First of all, champagne works with our food just perfectly. Perfectly. It's like
course
a match
to course to course to course.
Yeah. There's nothing to do wrong.
And because it's a French established restaurant, Burgundy,
correct,
is going to lead the call.
Correct. And it also works great with our food. Here and there, we sprinkle some Austrian wine in because people know I'm Austrian and I'm biased. But I think, look, today's wine world is so exciting. Even for someone who says, look, I used to drink Burgundy, but it got a little bit out of my price range. Look, there's so many interesting new wines out there. to
In
explore.
Burgundy too, you know, Marsenet,
Yeah.
Aligot,
Yeah,
new producers.
everywhere. You look to the new white Portuguese wines; they're fantastic.
Incredible.
Right? Again, this is the fun part about wine. If you have an open mindset, you can drink really fun and exciting wines now.
So, to your point, a restaurant like this has been so established and the wine list is so important, and you have to kind of have a wine list that represents the food and what you've been doing. Do you, Aldo Sohm, have the leeway to put those Portuguese whites on, or the list is tight and maybe it doesn't go with the food or it's not the right price point? I guess the question is this a harder restaurant for someone like you to explore and put these wines on?
This is a two-folded question, I assume.
Maybe three.
One of them, look, I enjoy. I mean, look, I'm now here for 16 plus years at Le Bernardin. Maggie and Eric really trust me. Of course, I justify, explain what I'm doing, you know,
Sure.
so they know they're not in the tapping in the dark. That's one. Of course, I look for new wines, new exciting. I'm not going after trends because trends come and trends go. But I think what is interesting, what
Fair
offers a
point.
value to our clients, what works also with the food beautifully well, because you ultimately want to, you want to work together with the kitchen,
Sure.
right? Not against it.
Right.
And ultimately, I look also what do our clients look for, right?
Right.
Um,
It's not always you, it's them.
It's not about me at all.
Yeah, except for the Austrian wines.
Yeah, but yeah,
They
it's,
go well.
There is nothing. I think in life we often take ourselves so seriously. A little sense of humor often brightens up the situations and breaks
I'm
the ice.
busting you.
But
So you do have an opportunity to do it.
100%.
But you know, I wouldn't call them guidelines, but they're just things you need to think about: the customer, the food.
I mean, look, I gave you once this example. I believe it was on our early show when a handful of my colleagues gave me a hard time because I had a specific larger champagne brand and on the list. And I used this always as an example. You have a young couple, a young date coming in, right? And she wanted that champagne because it's advertised in every lifestyle magazine. And they gave me a hard time. I said, why don't you serve a grower champagne? I said, why would I do that? And I said, she doesn't get what she wants. He doesn't look very good, right? I downsell the restaurant, first of all, and also the floor. And secondly, I will win one quick little battle, but I lose the client overall.
It's a good point, and it's a smart point, and it's not like you don't have other grower champagnes on the list. You know, you're just taking some crap because you had that one wine.
You build
out.
a relationship with that and a trust with the client because we care. I'm in for the long game. Probably, otherwise I wouldn't be here for 16 years.
Sure.
And I think these are all long-term relationships, and they build trust.
Well, I think you have a good sense
Right.
for it. In your book, Wine Simple, which I read a couple times, and I use it as a reference, and I quote you, you said, just because a wine is expensive doesn't mean it's good. Many of the wines I drink on the weekend cost less than 25%. $25. I'm sorry.
That went up slightly a little bit,
Well, yeah,
obviously.
I mean, everything went up slightly. So let's stay with that point, which is a great point, and let's stay with the holidays. What are some of those weekend wines that are good for the holiday? Or what are the good value wines for the holiday? Because, and you taught me a lesson. You know, I do the wine list where I ask 5 questions, and one of the questions I asked was what's your favorite all-time wine? And initially I was curious about the guests' rarest, most expensive wine they ever had. The question has morphed into not that, but what's the wine that changed the way you thought about wine? That was a gateway and all of that. And I once asked you, I said to you, Aldo, what's the most expensive bottle of wine you ever sold there? And I may have even been obnoxious and said to who. and you wouldn't answer the question for all the right reasons. And that's why I changed the question. It's not about the big expensive wine, it's about the experience or the importance that wine had to you. So I changed the question. So
yeah,
this
money often brings often quite a lot of noise into it, and you lose actually
and you're the
what
one
this
who
is all
said I
about.
drink $25 wines, around there on the weekends.
Yeah, but it's a mood thing.
no, I know.
If I'm sit on the beach, in 90-degree weather and high humidity, the last thing I want to drink is a Romani Conti.
Fair enough,
Right?
But let's box that in a little. We're in the holiday season. A lot of the country is in cooler weather. Some people hope for a white Christmas. Think of that for holiday wines. I mean, does anything make sense there? In that lower price range, what would you recommend to people?
I think you look. I'm also. I mean, I pick on the point that I just made. I follow my mood swings. Right? What am I craving today? Right? Sometimes you crave a steak. Sometimes you crave a piece of salmon. Sometimes you crave just a pasta. When I'm off, I'm off.
Part of it is food driven.
Totally.
Okay.
And for that, I put the wine onto it. And sometimes, shockingly enough, I don't even go on wine. I just have a simple beer. Right? So something crisp, refreshing, where I can sit and just talk to my wife and not being distracted by wine conversation.
It's funny because I asked Katya, tell me a traditional Austrian holiday dinner, and let's see if we could pair wines. And goose came up, lingonberries, and then your favorite cookie of all time, something with a K. What's it called?
It's called vanilla. It's because
Vanilla.
it's made with vanilla. Kipferl.
Kipferl.
Kipferl is basically the first, before the croissant came around, the Kipferl. That's actually that's the carbon coffee.
Which she said,
The croissant.
was your favorite. And she actually showed me a video of you keeping a box in the wine cellar at Le Bernardine and just going in and out.
This is the how do you call them, guilty food pleasures?
Yes.
And
yes.
there was no stopping.
But also you
That's
don't eat
actually-
them all the time, and they're reminiscent of.
I will happily say this in public.
Go
Just
ahead.
for that reason, my calorie intake, I'm so happy she's gone.
That's right. She showed me a
sounds
box.
awful.
There must have been 100 in there.
Oh my God.
So-
Again, they're so delicious.
So
I can't stop there.
So you just taught me another thing. I'm asking you what are good value holiday wines, and your answer was it's really the mood, it's situational, and it's also food driven, which you and I know. So, I mean, it's really circumstantial to all those things. It's hard to. That's too general of a question.
It's a very general question, but I think, look, we often tied up in cornered. We have to do this, we have to do that. How come we just, the best parties are always the parties which aren't planned,
Right.
right?
I
And
agree
that's
with that.
exactly what I follow on my Sunday.
I agree with that. People drink a lot of champagne during the holidays, as we said.
Yeah, but you
know.
don't have to. For instance,
Well, that's my question.
For instance-
it's been perceived as a celebratory drink. Tell people why we should drink it all year round.
right?
I mean, we should.
I gotta be honest with you. I mean, if you drink, for instance, Raventos, from Pepe Raventos, the Raventos y Blanc, it's a delicious sparkling wine from Spain, right? Especially the rosé, right? There's nothing wrong. That's a little bit above now, but the white is still kind of within that range. It's a delicious wine, easy. Then even because I just watched the movie,
What movie?
Somme 4.
It just came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the Koish sparkling wines. Very interesting sparkling wines from Armenia.
So,
Right.
one of
And
the
with
questions I'm
quite a
asking
story
everyone
to
is
it.
outside of champagne, talk to me about sparklers. So,
Yeah.
number one, you said Pepe Raventos,
Yeah.
and I want to do a shameless plug. Pepe's going to be on The Grape Nation in January.
Really?
Yeah,
He's the best.
He reached out to us.
Oh.
I said, Jesus, how soon can you do this? So I'm excited in January to talk to him. So
What a great human.
Pepe, yeah, looking so Spanish sparkling. Armenia is now in the headlines for sparkling and still wines.
Yeah, there's actually one up in the Basque country too. It's actually run by Michael Skernick, is Isar Lendi, where Rafael Beresh is behind.
Ah.
Interesting sparkling wine. right? It's above the 25. I think it retails for around
But
30,
that's okay.
35. But it's delicious.
Right.
Really, really tasty.
What about sect?
Yeah, see, this is the one thing
What?
which one of there's so many price changes and everything is up and up and up. I think in today's world we look for what is kind of, I don't want to say undiscovered, but what is kind of didn't go up crazy, and that is actually one area where you still can drink quite a lot of quality for your dollar. German sparkling wine.
So
And that's a big thing. Also Austrian.
the quality is
For
good.
instance, if you drink from Fred Leumer, makes this, from the Kamptal region, makes a delicious sparkling wine.
What do you think that eventually it'll come into prominence and get discovered, or it could remain under the radar?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously we gravitate here in New York to French because, of course, everybody knows Paris. We have about 500 love movies from Paris, not so much about Germany and Austria. That being said, quality will always succeed.
Right.
It might take some time,
Right.
but people always will discover it. And how much more fun is it when you travel wine, you eat and drink and discover. And it's
But
simple.
you should always discover here too.
Yeah.
You should defer to your
Yeah.
som or to your retailer. You should say, I want to try something different. Here's what I like. What's similar? Or I want to try something new. Right? I mean,
It's a comfort thing. Buying wine can be awfully intimidating, especially if you don't know or if you're not familiar with that topic. So it's kind of very hard.
yeah, but you're the guy. So I'm sitting,
know, but it's-
I'm sitting here with you and I'm saying, yeah, wine is intimidating to buy. I got to go in for the holidays and buy champagne, maybe sparklers, something a little better than what I normally give. What's the best way to do that? I mean, did we answer it already by saying talk to your?
To me, it's such a good question because this is just an everyday situation I see. And then often when you have a couple, right? He likes Burgundy, she likes big Napa Cab. So how you bridge this gap, right? So I often try to listen into both, and he says, of course, he's polite. I said, pick a good wine for my wife. I said,
So he defers to her.
Defers to her.
You don't pick something that would appeal to both of them.
I look for that.
That too.
How can I bridge the gap?
Right.
Right? So both are happy, right? Because you want to have people give a good time.
That's a tough. That's an art. I mean, not everyone listens because everyone is kind of preaching
Yeah,
what
but that's
they
our
like.
job.
Yeah,
As a
no, no,
sommelier,
no.
you got to
when-
listen and you got to
yeah.
look and observe.
When you come here, that happens. Wait, so he wanted Burgundy, she wanted what?
Big, bold Napa Cabs.
Okay.
Right?
So wait, so
but
what'd
these
you wind up
instances
doing?
These instances happen all the time.
Oh yeah.
All the time.
Or a Bordeaux,
Right?
Burgundy Bordeaux.
I forgot what I gave him, but he says, "Oh my God, this is so delicious!" Right? You know what I gave him? I gave him the Rosso di Montalcino from Stella di Campalto.
Wow.
Right?
Because it's not big over the top.
Correct, but she had the power enough, and
Well,
for him
yeah.
it's soft enough.
That's a perfect choice.
so, and
The Rosso, not even the Brunello.
No, we didn't. Yeah, but didn't want to cook.
Yeah, wow.
But so he absolutely loved it, right? He said, "Oh my God, this is super delicious." So you want to be inclusive in that sense, right? And get all of them together.
I
Right?
think that's the way to
Yeah.
make everyone happy, and that is a brilliant choice.
Because that's a setup for you as a sommelier, because you will, if you don't pay attention to that, right, only 50% of the party will be happy.
I know,
Right?
which is
Rather
not,
if you have to change
in
it to
your
100.
business, that's not a good success
Correct.
rate. And ironically, Stella is still one of those under the radar great producers that makes great wine. When you talk about champagnes, do you do by the glass champagne here?
A lot.
So do you
We have it actually in the pairing too.
do you have favorites that are always here? Do you try to rotate? Because that's an opportunity for you to introduce champagnes that maybe you're not buying cases of for the cellar, right? Or both.
this became quite a challenging situation with the supply chain issues we had in the last
Really?
couple of years.
Something you couldn't control.
Yeah, because look, I have champagne also on the wine pairings, and I find that fun. And I don't bring it at the first course; I actually bring it in the second or third sometimes, because it's a little provocative,
Right.
right? Because people are not accustomed to that. In America, people drink champagne as aperitif or as a toast, not in the middle. But then when you have a good talking point, I said we can drink champagne with everything. And if I'm stuck in a wine pairing, I pick champagne, and it will work because you have so many layers.
Are people open to that?
100%.
Is that becoming less and less because people are becoming more either sophisticated or aware that be open?
I have many freedoms in life. Judgment is not one of them.
Right.
I don't look at it from that angle. I just look at it, how can I work in the best possible way together with Eric and the food?
Right.
When you have an 8-course tasting menu with wine pairing, then
How many wines are you going to pair?
8.
You'll do
I do 8.
a wine, a course.
Yeah.
Jesus, I thought maybe 1 or 2 would
Yeah.
go from one course to the next.
We thought
I get it.
We thought about that for a while. The issue with this is, you can tailor it much more and can tweak it much more without making a compromise.
Right.
We have to make compromises sometimes in the at work, but we try not to do this on the client.
Right.
This has to be on.
God. So how many?
But to answer your question is, we have often certain favorites because they do very, very well. It's a little tricky to get enough stock to make this work.
So what you want, you can't always get. And
Well,
what
that's
you
life.
want, you just indicated as a reaction to what the customer
Yeah,
wants.
but look, I mean, I just have here a bottle of Charton Taillé, which is an all-time favorite of mine. Look, these champagnes became also very, very popular. So all of a sudden, we used to pour them by the glass. Now it becomes much more challenging. I'm happy for Alexander.
Is champagne going through that Burgundy thing where it's less available, more expensive,
Well,
and access is?
I mean, I think for the longest while, they were way undervalued.
Yes, I
so
think.
now
Well,
it's
maybe
catching up.
just to get attention, they had to undervalue. But
Now it's catching up. And, I mean, look, I'm always happy when someone is successful who works very, very hard.
right,
And that's a good guy.
yeah, very good guy, and he makes a bunch of beautiful champagnes. And what's nice about that is he makes great champagnes, and there's a pretty large handful of other guys, like him,
Tons.
which is really, I mean, it's more than a renaissance. I mean, Champagne is a great place, to select stuff. So, I'm glad to hear that. I know I asked you this last year, but I want to kind of bang this into people's heads. So I'm going to ask you this every time, I think. What is the perfect glass for drinking champagne?
I'm obviously biased. I will always say it's Alto. But
But Zalto is a manufacturer and a gorgeous manufacturer. I mean, it's lighter than air. The workmanship is crazy, but you're not talking about. Let's talk about the type.
You talk
it's
about the
not
type.
a Zalto champagne flute.
Yeah, see, this is a loaded.
not.
This is the loaded gun.
Well, I thought we
Here's
got
why.
beyond this.
No, I personally, I have always the Zalto Universal on most of the champagnes. Now, if you have some a little bit more austere Blanc de Blancs, I go into the white wine glass.
So the first glass is,
My Universal is basically
which is a wider
it's
open,
a little wider. It's like
a red wine.
It's a white wine, red wine glass.
Right. Okay.
But then you have a little bit richer versions of champagne,
You'll
like a
go
Charton
to-
Taillé or a Beresh
you'll-
or a Krug.
You'll
or,
go to a white wine glass,
Correct.
which is a little narrower on the top,
Correct.
but nothing like a champagne flute.
No.
Yeah.
But if you have, for instance, a Pierre Peters, right, that's when I go in there, we're going the white wine. The other one I do Universal. But on a Pierre Peters, I often go in the flute too, because my wife insists on a flute.
That's different. If you want a flute, you want a flute. I just want people to know that.
But she likes the glass. She likes the Salto flute so much.
Salto does make a flute?
They make a
Oh,
flute,
must
yeah.
be
But
pretty
she likes
nice.
it. It's such a sexy gloss, and she's adamant about it. And you know what? Here is the bottom line on wine. It comes down to it. The fish has to like the bait, not the fisherman. If she is happy,
I was just going to say that.
that's all it takes.
You don't want to F with that.
No,
Right?
but and I'm fine with. Again, listen, I don't judge this. Look, what is delicious
So-
to you is delicious.
So you answered the question. There's really three options. There's, a universal wine glass for some more austere wines. There's, a white wine glass. And if you love the flute, you drink from a flute. That's all.
100%.
What about temperature?
Yeah, that's very tricky on champagne.
Why? Does it
it's-
vary by the champagne or is it a general thing?
I think to me, champagne is one of the most sensitive wines on temperature in general.
So under or over, you have a
Well,
miss
too
there.
cold, it's not good. Too warm, it gets richer and loses kind of its spark. So I have this habit when I drink it at home. I pour myself and then constantly go put it back into the fridge.
to keep
To
the
keep the
temperature
temperature.
steady.
Correct. Now,
So tell me about the starting temperature. What should it be about? And then you're talking about maintenance. Instead of sitting on a table for 40 minutes, you go back in the
I'm
fridge.
always on. I mean, a regular fridge is 7-8 degrees Celsius. I think that averages into 44, 45
Okay.
degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay. So that's got a nice little chill to
Right.
it. You don't want to go colder because
Mhm.
you'll lose flavor
Yeah.
body.
Now, if
And-
it's an aged or a vintage champagne, then you can warm up a little bit, but
Right.
not too much.
Get all the nuance
Correct.
and everything. And I'm curious about this. This is a dumb question, but do we pour champagne differently than wine? Do you pour out more champagne? Maybe there's two parts to that. There's what you do in a restaurant, and then what would you do if you're at a dinner with friends?
You know,
is
probably
it
the
same-
listeners can see me smiling, but I share a very funny story with you. Happened in the first week when I landed in the US. As a European, you always hold the glass in a 45-degree angle and pour the champagne gently in so the bubbles don't go away. And I remember the maitre d' that on that tapped immediately in my hand, do not do that. In New York, we don't touch the glass of the client. And if the New York Times catches you, they're going to hammer you, right? And I said, what?
Wow.
And I was,
the culture shock.
it's
there.
just, I mean, listen, again, but so I got accustomed to it. That's why I saw Miss American. This was one of my instant things. And I think back in the day, Frank Bruni was the reviewer, right? I never actually went, why not? What's the issue? But that's kind of the culture shock. There is,
That's interesting.
right?
Is that still going on in Europe?
Yeah, you see this quite frequently.
All right, so answer the question now. When you pour champagne or you pour a bottle of wine, are you pouring both of them the same, or can you pour champagne out a little more?
No, I pour less. Again, temperature is key. I don't want to have it warm up. Right?
What are you talking, like a third of a glass or less?
Hey, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I don't fill it up to the very top.
No, I know that.
I just fill a quarter,
quarter,
right?
I mean,
Depending
not
on what
even.
type of glass that is, right?
Right.
If we talk about the Salto
Yeah.
Universal,
It's a big glass.
I even go in a fifth.
right.
It's a tiny amount. Just, I mean,
Yeah.
a couple of sips. That's it.
What do you do in a restaurant with champagne? You keep it in a cooler to make
Well,
sure that you can maintain.
First of all, we always ask the client,
How
do
they
you
like
prefer it in a flute or you prefer it in a wine glass?
Okay.
I'm fine either way.
Wait,
Right.
but let's do a little survey. To your recollection, what do most people ask for? Is it down the middle? Is it
The
more
wine glass is increasing.
Okay.
It's still a good
It's been
amount.
flute.
Flute for a long
People,
time.
okay.
I
that
mean,
makes
look,
sense.
These things take time.
Yeah, that makes total
Uh,
sense.
But and then some people say, well, what's the difference? And then I said, would you mind me showing it to you? And I show it to them what the difference is.
Do they tend to switch to the wine glass after?
Yeah. And for some people, it's a new experience, so they have to get more accustomed to it. But again, you start a thinking process.
What about temperature? Do you chill it for people?
Ice bucket, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
it's rare unless the
And it's
customer
funny, on
asks for it.
champagnes, actually, how this varies on champagne. Some people really like it extra cold, right?
Do you give into that, or you say
We
whatever?
ask, is the temperature good, right? If they say we like it a tick warm, cooler, fine.
All right, one last question, and then I'm going to let you go because we've been here almost a half an hour, which is twice what I kind of told you. What is your splurge champagne?
Oof.
Splurge.
Splurge. I love Cristal.
Any
I'm a big
particular
fan.
vintages? 13, 14,
I love 12
12?
quite a bit. Obviously 8.
8.
I love also Winston Churchill quite a bit, or Clos de Goisse. So those are my splurges.
Okay.
Right.
I had the good fortune about a month and a half ago to sit down with Jean-Baptiste Le Caillon. It was
Love him.
I love him now. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew it. And I think he had a good time. We both had a good time. He's really a terrific guy.
He came to Bushwick.
No, I actually. So it's funny you say that. He came to Bushwick. I taped him at the Baccarat Hotel.
Okay, there we
just
go.
like
There we
Bushwick,
go,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's where
makes
he
more
was staying.
sense.
Yeah. No
Makes more
Bushwick and
sense
all
to
that.
me.
All right, so those are some pretty good splurges.
So this is always an interesting journey because when you go to Bushwick, I often tend to have a quick little bite at Roberta's after.
Well, I think the second time you came on this show, I think we had a bite afterwards. We had Nancy Slagowitz with us and a couple other people.
Yeah.
We all sat around. That was a lot of fun. Who doesn't want to do that? And we brought the wines from the show over. So that was great. And Nancy has still stayed very true to champagne.
And Brooklyn is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I live there.
I know for a while. And restaurants like Ival and Falanza, there's some great Mexican taco places.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm going to Aval this week, this Sunday.
I'm curious
I'm
to
super
hear
excited.
what that's like.
I was there 3 weeks ago, and I have to admit, I was craving the next day the
You
food
were?
again, and that's a statement.
Have you been to? I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. Elis?
No.
Elis? That's the Copenhagen guys or what? I'm curious to see what's going on there. All right, Aldo, I'm going to let you go. I want to thank Aldo Sohm for taking time out of a busy schedule and a busy time of the year to sit down and talk to us about his thoughts on wine, holiday wine, champagne, and a bunch of other stuff. Thank you, Aldo, and we wish you a happy and healthy holiday.
Thank you for having me, and for Sam and for the Grape Nation, we do almost anything.
Thank you.
Happy
Hopefully, I'll
holidays.
see you next year. Bye. If you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Subscribe to the Grape Nation podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Leave a review if you like the podcast, and please subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at sbenruby and on Twitter, X, at benruby. You could find us on both using the hashtag The Grape Nation. We are on Facebook at The Grape Nation. I want to thank our guests, Jonelle Fallner, Katja Scharnagel, and Aldo Sohm. Thank you to our engineer, Armin, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Benruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.